I definitely haven't mastered it. I'll give you a trial and I'll show you just how bad it is.
That was great.
Practice makes perfect. Give me another
We
week.
now disrupt your regularly scheduled programming.
Greetings, fellow wanderers. I'm Fred. This is my brother Jay, and we're your hosts for Wander Beyond, exploring the unseen, understanding the unsaid. Well, welcome to episode 2. I hope you enjoyed the first episode, and please comment on that either below the video here on any of our social medias or email. Right now we're trying to grab onto this while it's still hot. The flat versus globe Earth theories are all the rage right now. I belong to a few forums online, and it's really hot and heavy right now. A lot of back and forth, a lot of really hilarious stuff, a lot of really interesting stuff, but some pretty comical stuff as well. So we thought we'd touch base on this subject as well right away, especially in light of what they've been calling the final experiment. And we'll talk about that a lot more throughout this episode. But basically, a group of prominent flat earthers and globe earthers all took flights down to Antarctica here for the solstice to either prove or disprove the 24-hour sun, which, according to globe theorists, proves the rotation and the shape of the Earth. Flat earthers would tell you it does or it doesn't, depending on who you're talking to. But that's all the rage right now, so we thought we'd glom onto this. Jay, what do you have to say about that?
Well, yeah, so the final experiment just went down. They did prove there was a 24-hour sun. It was filmed and it was verified. And so there was a lot of prominent flat earth YouTubers down there and also globers. So all the flat earthers did acknowledge that there was a 24-hour sun, which disproves the Dave Weiss flat earth app model.
Correct.
Which is kind of the prominent model. So it does disprove that. So again, everybody acknowledged that.
Most people acknowledge that.
Well, right. There are a lot of flat earthers I've seen that are in complete denial.
Yes.
And it's, to me, like, just stop. You know?
And this doesn't have anything to do with flat versus globe. This is, here's some evidence. It was recorded live. You could watch it. You can watch it right now. And to just deny that that's not true is just
right. It was green screen. It was CGI. Like, stop it.
It was pre-recorded. They all flew to Iceland instead of Antarctica. Like, that would somehow change the formula. Right. And so, yeah.
So, you know that I went very far down the flat Earth rabbit hole for a long time.
Yeah, we talked about this. Yeah.
Right. And now I've never believed that the Earth is flat, but I remember you and I talking about it, where it kept coming up in my feeds and I would see this stuff. And at first I was like, this is so stupid. Like, how could people ever be this dumb? And so I started actually diving, because I wanted to see why do so many people believe this? Why are so many people grabbing onto this? And the more I looked into it, the more I realized that what actually is believed about the flat earth model is not what you normally see, like when you're seeing these types of, things on the internet. And it actually gets pretty interesting. They do have some very, eye-opening points that we'll go over, throughout this podcast.
Sure.
Just to kind of show both sides of it. And while I think that the final experiment, it sort of disproves that Dave Weiss flat earth model, doesn't necessarily prove that everything we think we know is 100% correct either.
Sure.
I think it's somewhere in between. I don't think we know everything. I don't think we know anything.
I don't think we do. Yeah.
And so what I don't like is everyone's like, oh, see, now, the Earth's a globe, which, I'm not saying it is or isn't, but everything else that goes with it is just automatically true then too.
Right.
So, and I disagree with that.
I remember the very first time I was introduced to the flat Earth model was watching some interview with Shaq, and Shaq came on TV and said something along the lines of, well, I travel a lot and it sure looks flat to me. And I was like, oh no.
Yep. And then Kyrie Irving, basketball player.
And then, yes. And then all of a sudden these athletes came out, and now again, wander beyond. The whole idea of it is we all have this preconceived idea of what reality is. And so to hear that, of course, it immediately, butts up against what I know to be true. So to hear that, my first instinct was just to, spit milk out my nose because it was so ridiculous and stupid.
Exactly.
Which isn't the right way to react. Now, granted, this was several years, if not decades ago, that I heard this. So I'm a much different person now. But this is where a lot of the arguments stem from online, is someone hears this and the immediate reaction is just like, bah, you're a retard,
Yep.
What, you never.
Someone didn't finish their third grade
right.
science class.
Yeah.
So
you and I had that conversation. What was that? Maybe it's been more than a month ago, where we stayed up pretty late talking about this.
Yeah.
And remember you asked me, or you pointed out some things, which we'll get into. And you're like, see, and I didn't answer right away. I just kind of stared back at you on screen, like, huh? And you're like, see, now you're starting to question it or whatever. But what was really going on is you were pointing out things that to me at the time seemed so ridiculous that I started questioning myself. I'm trying to come up with an example right now, but what was it? Oh, it was the Umbra Penumbra thing. And you can't recreate it, whatever.
You can't.
And it just it shocked me so much that you even said it. I didn't respond to it because I was just dumbfounded. And I didn't know how to respond because I was questioning myself, like, wait a minute, I'm pretty sure we did this in school. So I was trying to think of. Anyways, my point is, I'm just bringing up this, when you hear something that your brain isn't ready to process,
right, you
just want to shut everything down right away.
It's called cognitive dissonance.
Yeah. So there was a lot of that. And so since that conversation, I've done a lot of my own research, and a lot of my stuff was like math, like going in and finding out, trying to find formulas online that astrophysicists or astronomers from days of yore were using to calculate distance and things, and trying to recreate that, and doing a lot of my own research. So a lot of neat stuff came out of that, and just thought exercises too. And I'm sure you have as well.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
So what are some things you want to we should go from here? We should also point out too that because right now the hot topic is flat Earth versus globe Earth, and just like Packers versus Bears, and there's other ones, a liberal versus conservative or whatever, it all suddenly becomes a binary decision. You have to pick your team and go to battle.
That's right. And I try to explain to people, everything in the world doesn't have to be binary all the time.
No, nothing. Virtually nothing is.
So we're going to have an episode down the road about the Hermetic principles, and one of them is the principle of polarity. So a lot of our things in our society are centered around that principle. They understand the Hermetic principles and they use them in very specific ways. And like if you look at, we'll get into that. I'll save that for the episode. But anyway, that's by design. And I tell people, stop thinking everything doesn't have to be binary all the time.
Right.
There are, things between two poles. So
right.
It's okay to like, just because that they went down to this final experiment in Antarctica doesn't mean that every single thing about the globe model is correct either. Like it doesn't have to be like all in on one or the other side. So
right. And
sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I just want to add one more thing.
Yeah, please.
The premise of science is to question everything.
That's how you do science. Yes.
Exactly. And then nowadays, like when we start to question anything, like, oh, you're retarded. Oh, you didn't pass third grade science class. Oh,
follow the science. Come on, the science is telling us, like, no, that's not how you do science.
Right.
That's indoctrination.
There'll
That's
be
a
like,
cult.
memes of people with crossed eyes sticking their tongue out. Like the whole idea of science is to question everything.
Yes.
And then people,
that's a point we're going to touch on a lot throughout all our podcasts, is that in today's day and age, suddenly you're not allowed to question the science. And like you just said, if you start to push back a little bit, or even just question the stuff that's out there, you get ridiculed. You can lose your livelihood. You can lose your business and your home and your family. And, you can be just destroyed by the rest of society just for asking questions. Right. We'll get into this in other episodes, but everything to do with the COVID lockdowns and all the information that the people were getting banned, online and losing their jobs and everything. It turns out now that the dust is all settled, that they were all right. Just if we were just allowed to question and have a discord about what's going on, all that stuff could have been avoided. So a lot of science now is just this cult mentality. You're either with the science or you're against. You're either with us 100% or you're against us 1,000%.
Science has become its own religion.
Yes. And that just doesn't sit well. So that is a major thing we're going to try to solve here, or, fight against on Wander Beyond, is to fight that cult mentality and question science like it should be done.
And you can tell when it's happening because, and this is not a natural reaction, people get mad so quick. Why are you getting mad?
Yes.
That's not even a normal reaction.
Not even like, oh, I disagree with you. Let's stop the conversation, but just instant, just like vitriol. Yes.
Yeah. That's not a normal reaction to somebody questioning something. So that tells you right there that you're programmed.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It is. Yeah. You're not allowed to question the cult leader. If not,
that's right.
So, okay. Oh, what I was going to get at too is it's not a binary choice. There's more than two choices here. And so there are, believe it or not, other theories about our reality and what it could all be. There's things that another popular one right now is the simulation theory. That's out there, and there's some interesting takes on both sides. If you really start to get into the rabbit hole of quantum physics and string theory, literally everything is possible. Right. So there's that. There's other dimensions and quantum bubbles and everything. And is the universe expanding? Is it not? So there's a whole lot of things to talk about besides just what shape is the Earth.
Exactly it. And so down the road, I want to do an episode about, I know you and I have talked a lot about this. I'm big on vortex mathematics and numbers, and I'm a little bit autistic that way.
You show me some really interesting things. Yeah.
And so you're going to see some really interesting things where you can sort of break down our whole reality in this very symmetrical mathematical way, where it's almost like magical. And you'll see what I mean in the episode. Yeah. But to me, I sort of feel like this is some kind of a realm simulation, whatever it is. And it's because you can almost break it all down mathematically, and it just all, and I'm going to explain the whole thing.
Yeah.
That's going to be a great episode.
It's funny with whatever branch or whatever of science you're studying. And when you really get into it and start to break it down, everything converges into that one sort of thought of everything breaking down into the math. For example, you're talking about that from a reality science standpoint. I have an art degree, and so in the middle of that, we learned a lot about like the what is it, the Fibonacci sequence?
Fibonacci sequence.
Yes, that. So, and the golden spiral and all that, and so we had to learn about that. And the more I learned about that, the more you learn that all that is broken down into numerical sequences, and it has a lot to do with the way the human brain works and the way that nature creates everything. And the more you learn about it, the more you realize that all of it is just broken down into these same numbers that you're talking about
Exactly. And it's
And you
over
can
and
do it
over and over.
in the medical fields, and of course physics and astrophysics, biology, geology. Everything winds up breaking down into that sequence of numbers, and it applies to every branch of science.
It does. It's very interesting. And we're going to go through
Yeah.
that pretty in depth at some point.
Yes, that would be a great episode to do for sure.
Yeah.
And get into all the patterns in nature. I'm a fantasy cartographer by trade outside of here, and one thing I always see when I'm doing research, people will send me photographs, or I'll see them online, of, say, a pile of leaves that they raked in their backyard and the wind blew over. And wow, doesn't this pile of leaves now look like an island in the ocean? Or one I saw recently, which was shocking, which looked so real, was a pile of snow in a Walmart parking lot, and it had all melted. And you're like, this looks just like a map. And another one was a pattern in the knot of a tree, or it was moss. I'm sorry, there was moss growth, and it looked just like an archipelago and an island and whatever. I'm like, yes, I know, like, you're sending it to me because, like, wow, this is funny, check this out. But really, what's happening is it's that pattern, it's that numerical sequence, that everything in nature is following the same set of numbers, and we're viewing it through our eyes through the same thing. And all that stuff is all broken down into the same numbers and the same patterns.
It's super interesting.
Yeah. So we've gone astray here a little bit.
A little bit. It's okay.
So do you have anything you want to say?
Well, okay. So when I first started looking into this flat earth stuff and the globe stuff, I was sort of trying to understand, how did people even like start to think that flat earth was even a possibility at all? And I wanted to actually get in their head and go, why would somebody ever think this? And then the more I dug into it, the more I'm like, okay, I see now how it sort of came about. There's lots of like Bible verses that reference like a firmament in the sky, and just lots of things about
the four corners,
an immovable earth. And then there's lots of things about NASA, like
the NASA.
Look at our intro. Like there's lots of weird things about, oh, we're up in space, and it's just bullshit. And and so then you go, well, if all this is real and we have all this technology, why do we have to fake these things?
Yeah.
And so then, I mean, it's okay to question things.
Yes.
And that's how it all starts.
I have something to say on that. So, first of all, a lot of the NASA thing, a lot of people are saying that NASA is faking the ISS videos, that there's no real photographs of the Earth from space and all that because NASA lies. I actually am a pretty firm believer that most of what we're seeing from NASA is faked. And I know that's, oh my God, it's shocking, but really, and we might touch on that in this episode a little bit, but I think that we need to respect that topic by doing a whole show on that.
We do.
So
I mean,
much.
But there is actual things you can look up right now real quickly. There's like rockets going through space, and then like a little mouse runs out.
Yes, that's a popular one. I think that was one of the SpaceX tests.
Right. And then even just now, I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before. So those astronauts that were like trapped on the ISS and couldn't get back. So they left in June. It was supposed to be an 8-day mission.
I know what you're going to say. Yeah.
They just put out selfies yesterday from the ISS with Santa hats on.
Yes.
Why in the hell would they have Santa hats up there?
I know. I looked at a lot of that and read all the comments online, and there's some explanations like the space station's been up there a long time, and it's the same hats they wore last year at this time. It'll be the same hats they wear next year. Maybe not, but
maybe.
What
but they're like thinking of all these things, and they're like, wait, did anybody get the Santa hats? Let's forget those.
Is there nothing better to do? But there's so many videos. But what I wanted to say was, this morning I was online looking for all those videos, Jay, that you and I have sent each other
and
online,
they're gone, right?
And I can't find any of them.
Of course,
it's just scrubbed. And I was looking up the exact titles and everything of the videos that we had. Nothing. And it doesn't even look like the videos are like not where they're supposed to be. It's not like I go to that web page and it's like, oh, this video's been removed. I mean, nothing. Like the web page doesn't even exist. It's as if those videos were never shot in the first place.
Right.
And so that's very weird. And even the one that I showed in the intro there wasn't the one that I wanted to show, but it's the only one I could find. But you know, I even went into some like Reddits and subreddits and kind of dug deep into that. Even a lot of those, the links that they had to those videos are just dead links. They don't even go anywhere anymore.
Yeah.
So I regret now not just mass downloading all of that stuff locally. And I'm sure if I dig far enough, I'll be able to find them. But I'll start putting out some feelers for that and try to get people to send them to us.
There's a whole bunch of them. I mean, there was one with a guy on the ISS, and he had like a playing card in his hand, and he like spins it in the air, and then all of a sudden it just drops.
Yes,
like,
there's a few of those things.
Shit, you know, you can see it in his face.
Yeah.
And then there's one where like they're going through like a NASA facility, and in the background, if you look real quick as you're going by, there's a guy in front of a green screen doing like a space presentation.
Yes.
So you can actually see these things. It's not like, oh, you're just making, you know, using your imagination. You can see
you and I'll have to do a deep dive and collect all those videos, and we'll show them. We'll do the whole NASA episode.
Yeah.
But again, to the point, NASA lying or not lying has little or nothing to do with the globe being flat or a globe. You can believe the Earth is a globe and still believe that NASA's lying. It's not a binary choice.
Exactly. That's what we're trying to say. Is it doesn't mean
there's other space agencies, and you know, whether they're correct or not. Physicists and astrologers have been, you know, discussing globe Earth literally since BC, since prehistoric times. It's been discussed about, and they weren't any part of NASA. And that information's out there that has nothing to do with NASA. So you can have the debate, globe versus flat or whatever, without NASA even being a part of the equation. It's silly.
I mean, it does factor in. I mean, we can almost do a whole episode on just that.
Sure.
On the whole
well, because right now it's at least in the US, it's the predominant source of science and videos and stuff.
You can get to the root of what I mean. It was started by a Nazi scientist in that Operation Paperclip that we brought over. Werner von Braun was a Nazi scientist.
I can't wait to talk about a lot of that stuff.
That's a whole nother topic, but this is all kind of touching on what I was saying about how did people start.
Freemasons are really involved in that too.
Right. Well, yeah, 100%. Yeah. So from here, we can maybe I can show a few documents.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because when I started to dive down the rabbit hole, because again, my question in my head is why did people start even believing this at all? And when you start looking at a few things and you go, okay, well, I can see why people wanted to keep researching it and looking into it. So
yeah,
I probably have to do a screen share here.
Yeah, do it, and I'll pull it up for you.
Okay. So there's a few documents I want to show. These are like, some of these are on the NASA website, the official NASA website. Some of these are like Army documents that I'm going to show just real quick so you can see in writing. These are actual government documents. Let me just pull some of these up here.
Yep.
Okay. This one is called the Propagation of Electromagnetic Fields Over Flat Earth. Okay, I'm sorry. It's called Propagation of Electromagnetic Fields Over Flat Earth. Okay. And this is a paper. And it's on page 7 here. I can actually go to the top. This is what, page 7? So here's Army Research Laboratory, Propagation of Electromagnetic Fields Over Flat Earth. Army Research Laboratory, page 7. Where am I at here? It addresses the interaction of radiated electromagnetic fields with the Earth ground. It is assumed that the transmitting antenna and the target or receiver are located above but near the surface of a flat idealized Earth.
Idealized, that's an interesting word.
Right. This next one is from a paper called Adding Liquid Payloads Effects to the 6-DOF Trajectory of Spinning Projectiles. That's a mouthful. So section 2, let me see what page this is on, 7 also. Army Research Laboratory again.
Okay.
And when we go down to page 7, 6-DOF rigid projectile model is employed to predict the dynamics of a projectile in flight. These equations assume a flat Earth.
Do you have that up? Because right now I still have your.
Oh
no. Yep.
Do you see? Okay.
I still see the. Oh, there you go.
Okay. You see it now?
Yep.
Okay. These equations assume a flat Earth.
Is that the same document?
This is a different document. So
Okay.
Let me just go back up. And so this is the Army Research Laboratory adding liquid payloads effects to the 6-DOF trajectory of spinning projectiles. And just go back down to page 7. These equations assume a flat Earth. This one's right from the NASA website. It is the this is also page 7. Let me go back up just so you see the top. This is a NASA reference publication 1207, derivation and definition of a linear aircraft model. Let me pull that up because I got to share that tab. Can you see that?
There you go. Yep.
Okay. So this is a NASA reference publication. Let me go back down. Whoops, I think I went too far. Sorry. Okay, my mouse is freaking out. I think I screwed that up. I had it highlighted.
Sure.
Okay, right here. This just under introduction in the second right here. This report details the development of the linear model of a rigid aircraft of constant mass flying over a flat, non-rotating Earth.
Yeah, there it is.
This next one is called, let me go back up to the top, derivation of a point mass aircraft model used for fast time simulation. This is from a institute called the MITRE Technical Institute, and it's their report. And I don't remember which page I was just on. Can you see this one?
Yes.
Okay. Equations of motion, 2.1 reference frame, assuming a flat, non-rotating Earth, an inertial reference frame, et cetera, et cetera. So this is why, I mean, there's documents that actually say these things, and these aren't,
Right.
A conspiracy theorist document. These are very legitimate, government documents. Here's another one from NASA. I'm going to go over to this tab. We're on page 16. This is a user's manual for linear, a Fortran program to derive linear aircraft models from NASA Technical Paper 2768. And what page did I say that was? 13 or 16? Yes. Within the program, the nonlinear equations of motion include 12 states representing a rigid aircraft flying in a stationary atmosphere over a flat, non-rotating Earth. Huh.
Yeah. I mean, it's right there in black and white. You can't deny it.
It is. It is. Okay, this one's page 15. Let me just pull this there. I just got a few more to go through.
Go ahead.
An aircraft model for the AA Controls Design Challenge. What page did I say that was?
I don't know.
Okay, there we go. The nonlinear equations of motion used in this model are general 6-degree of freedom equations representing the flight dynamics of a rigid aircraft flying in a stationary atmosphere over a flat, non-rotating Earth. And just two more real quick.
Yeah.
This is a NASA document as well. And I'm going to have to zoom in because I can barely see this.
I got us on full screen too.
Okay. So down here, I don't know if you can see
I can see everything. It is
Okay.
small, but I can see it.
I forget where I had highlighted this, but it's another thing that talks about. I'm just going to go to the next one. I hit the wrong page, but it's the same thing. It talks about a flat, non-rotating Earth.
Sure.
And then this last one here. This is page 13. And this one is a Georgia Tech project A652001, which is in collaboration with NASA. And if we go down to page 13, we have a model frequently used as that of a flat, non-rotating Earth. So I'm going to pull us back to the podcast here. So these are just some actual official documents that have these things in them. And so these aren't just things that are coming out of thin air.
Right. I'm trying to think about what that says and why it would say it.
Mhm.
Of course, one would be that it's a flat, non-rotating Earth, but it could also be just trying to express that because of the laws of relativity, if you're doing the math and you're doing your calculations for flight patterns or whatever, because everything is relative to each other, that you don't equate in the fact that there's a rotation or whatever, because everything is relative to each other, that those things, I'm trying to say that math.
Well, I do, because I've heard this. This is the explanation I've heard before. But my thing is, then, like, why not just start then with what's actually there, a rotating, moving Earth with a moving atmosphere? Why would you start? Like, why not just say, let's just start with a triangle that has, carbon dioxide is the gas instead of oxygen? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. I see what you're saying though, and I get, but to me that doesn't make sense. And so another thing that happens a lot that I don't like is when it comes to globers or science guys that they stick to the narratives, is they don't apply things they say to everything. They'll pick and choose for that particular thing. For example, you and I recently were talking about the moon, and well, there's a theory that, an asteroid hit the Earth and that's where the moon came from, and then it's floating around. And I said to you,
there's several.
I go, okay, well, if that happened, then where are the rings around the moon and Earth? Because it would have rings. And you said, well, it could have been over time gravity, pulled that in and shaped it. Okay, but then what about like Jupiter and Saturn? Jupiter is, I think, 40 times larger than the moon or the Earth. I forget.
So way more than that.
And it's been around a lot longer than this, hypothetical moon. So why didn't it happen there?
Well, and I'm just playing devil's advocate, right?
Okay.
That they're way larger than the Earth, and they can hold way more mass in its orbits. I mean, there are moons around Jupiter that are the size of our planet, that they would be planets if it was rotating around the sun.
Right, with a lot more gravitational pull.
Yeah.
So it would pull those things into it much quicker than our moon would. And
I know, and I'm not trying to defend that model, because there's actually a lot of different theories about the moon and why it's there, and assuming that it is, what I assume it is, it's more probable that it was its own free floating thing and it just got trapped in the Earth's gravity field.
And then
that would make more sense to me.
Exactly rotate at the exact precise rotation it needs to stay.
I mean, if you look at the amount of objects that are in space, and the only one that happened is there. Well, yeah, I mean,
but I mean, if it even rotated,
is really, really, really slim. But there's an odd, and when there's hundreds of thousands of billions of things out there, once in a while something's going to get trapped, together.
Yeah, but I'm saying is if it even rotated 0.0001 faster or slower, we would slowly over thousands of years see different parts of the moon, but we never do. The odds of that are 1 in trillions times 1 in trillions.
And see, now you're doing the selective memory thing, because the moon is very, very, very slightly rotating, and we know this based on drawings and paintings from the past. We know it from different archaeological sites that were dated back 15,000-20,000 years ago, and the moon is actually moving further away from the Earth. It's not in a perfect orbit, and every year it moves 3/8 of an inch or something further away every year.
And now there's this new buzzword called it's tidally locked, which I've never heard until just this whole recent flat Earth thing.
Oh, that's not true at all. There's Mercury's tidally locked to the sun. The moon's tidally locked to us. There's other examples. There are other moons on other planets in our solar system that do the same.
Yeah, and then you could just go on and then you go on to this thing called the 3-body problem. I don't know if you know what that is.
I've heard it. I'm not familiar with it.
So when you introduce like a third body, so for example, like why is the moon not more affected by the sun's gravitational pull than the Earth? And I know that it's closer to the Earth, but the sun is a gazillion times bigger and more powerful. So the Earth is affected more by the sun than the moon is, and it's much bigger than the moon. So when you introduce a third body, it's called the third body problem. It's a common scientific thing.
Sure.
And then things start falling apart and they don't make sense. And I know you and me have had some pretty fierce debates about the rate of spin and the speeds that we're moving through the galaxy and around the sun, and it all falls apart to me. It does not make any sense whatsoever.
You're talking about if there's the change in speed when in the Earth's orbit around the sun, why don't we feel
because
like
the Earth moves around the sun in an elliptical shape, which means that and it's 1 year to complete the cycle. So at least twice a year, more likely 4 to 8, the Earth is going to change speeds throughout its rotation. Now, they claim that we're doing Mach 88 around the sun. So when you change speeds at that speed, things are going to happen.
Okay. I have the math on this. Right now, in the wintertime, the Earth travels at 67,700 miles an hour. That's the speed. That's the speed during winter.
Right.
It's really fast. I don't deny that. In summertime, it slows down as it gets to the outer part of its orbit, down to 65,700 miles an hour.
Okay.
That's 2,000 miles an hour of change per year. When you break that down into a 24-hour period, that's 11 miles per hour.
So step on a treadmill.
If you go in your car, travel on the freeway at 100 miles an hour for 24 hours, you slow down 11 miles an hour. Are you going to feel that?
Yes.
No.
I challenge you to go down the freeway with a full cup of coffee and tap the brakes, even doing 60 miles an hour, much less Mach 88.
Tapping the brakes will slow you down so much more than 11 miles an hour in 24 hours. And then if you figure the Earth's rotation, no one spot on the Earth is feeling all of that at any one given time, ever.
So you just
it's a much smaller fraction than that.
You don't think anything like the oceans wouldn't, like, could you do that with any other model?
The oceans move twice a day, every day.
I'm talking like a coffee cup that's full to the brim, and you tap the brakes. You don't think there would be this thing going? Like, we just don't feel anything.
If you smoothly slow down or sped up 11 miles an hour over the course, evenly distributed over 24 hours. The Earth isn't
slowing down at 11 miles an hour.
It absolutely is. What do you mean?
We're doing Mach 88 around the sun. So it's not 11.
And you know, the Mach 88 thing, that's very, very deceiving, right? That speed and velocity is all relative to each other.
Until you slow down or speed up.
11 miles an hour spread out over 24 hours.
Mach
You'll
88.
never feel that in a million years.
No, that's no. Yes, you would.
Why?
We're not doing like 11 miles an hour down the freeway in a car. We're doing Mach 88.
See, but it's relative.
Now, here's the thing too.
So summer relative to winter is only 11 miles an hour a day. That's how it works out.
Okay. So
if you're going Mach 8 and then winter comes, now you're going Mach 8 plus 11 miles an hour in 24 hours. That's it. Okay. That's the only difference.
So we're doing Mach 88 around the sun while we're doing 500,000 miles an hour through space from left to right on a linear plane. And all these other things are, and all this time in human history, not one time ever has there been zenith in the stars where stars closer to the Earth have moved past stars behind it. It's all stayed exactly the same. While these bodies are corkscrewing and spinning at millions of miles an hour, and nothing's,
And that's a common thing you hear too, which is also not true. The pole star, right, which is in the sky, everybody's like, why doesn't that ever move? It does move.
Well, I didn't say it didn't.
It can be measured right now. And if you look at star charts from historical times, there were different stars up there. And we can calculate now which star will be the pole star 5,000 years from now. But the stars do move. The only reason that we can calculate that we're moving in a linear plane against, at 100 million miles an hour or whatever, is because we're calculating that relative to very distant objects. They generally get the speed of the Earth or the universe, right? The whole deal against pulsars, which are super old, ancient things which are barely moving, and we're just measuring our movement compared to that.
Right.
But
so
none of that matters because
we can't see the landing
unless
site
we're
on
measuring
the
against
moon
that star, we're
with our
not really moving.
telescopes, but we can see stars that they say are billions of light years away, and we know what the core of those stars are. Like,
well, that's a whole different.
It's all silly to me. Like, I mean, you'll never convince me this whole thing's not silly. It doesn't make
and then and this is a very simple and outdated argument, but the whole thing, if you're on a train and you're throwing a ball back and forth to each other, right? If it's all relative. If I'm on the train,
I know where you're going.
The train's going 100 miles an hour. From left to right. The ball on the train, you're going 5 miles an hour.
Okay.
But if you're off the train,
right, great. Now take that same train.
How is that wrong?
And go Mach 88 in an ellipse while you're doing this spinning at 1,000 miles an hour on an axis. So that's totally different.
If you were taking that measurement while you were on that train, it wouldn't be moving at all.
What I'm saying is you're taking one of the three, we're spinning on an axis at 1,000 miles an hour while we're doing Mach 80 around the sun, while we're doing 500,000 miles an hour from left to right through a linear galaxy. When you're doing that whole train thing, you're just taking one of those things. But if you were to add in all the other factors, it would be totally different.
All right.
That's all I'm saying. It's silly. Like, I don't know. It's just silly to me. Doesn't make any sense.
It's hard, I think, for people, for humans to grasp how big and how far away everything is.
So let me ask you this. In your observable reality in your lifetime, what have you ever seen to make you think we're going through those speeds spinning around?
Well, I can't stand outside and see it other than watch the sun and the moon.
Okay, so let me pull up this little clip here. This is.
But I've never been to Detroit, but I'm pretty sure it's there.
That doesn't mean that because Detroit's there that everything else. Okay, I'm just gonna pull up this clip. This is Neil deGrasse Tyson, the head of the Church of Science.
Oh yeah, this should be good.
Talking about how I'm just gonna let you watch it. This is what I mean by this stuff is silly. Okay. Okay, can you see that or no?
I don't see anything yet. You haven't shared it.
Okay, let me just go back and I maybe have to share my screen. Okay. Okay, now can you see it?
Yep.
Okay, here we go.
All right, we're on screen now.
He's describing how a field goal was made in the NFL because of the spin of the earth.
Overtime.
Wow, that's
the team, Cincinnati Bengals, got within 50 yards and they kicked a field goal. And the ball rotated up. It hit the left upright of the goalpost and went in. And I said, "Ooh, wait a minute. Which stadium is this? What's the latitude?" And I the orientation of the stadium. I did a calculation and then I tweeted the overtime winning field goal by the Cincinnati Bengals was likely aided by a 1/3 of an inch deflection to the right, imparted by Earth's rotation. I was channel surfing one day. Wait.
LOL.
Yeah, and that is silly because the field goal, the air in the field goal in the stadium, the football, everything else was all relatively moving at the exact same speed.
This is what I mean about like everything in like these models that we use and these narratives that we follow. Like they're never constant. It's always like we change it to whatever we need. And then, but we don't, everything needs to be relative. If we use that there, then, well, golfer should be, well, the earth's spinning. So if I aim at the left side of the fairway, by the time it lands, and come on, it's ridiculous. I did a quick calculation. Yes. You were like, oh, hey, let me get my pen, honey. Yep. Oh, X times the third, degree of L. Oh, it's because the earth spin is why he made that field goal.
Right. Well, Neil's also a money grubbing TV whore. So,
but he's the scientist of what we call.
Well, yeah, and it's on there. So now, how many people watched that and was like, "Oh my God, wait till you hear what I just heard."
Yeah, exactly.
And then the water cooler talk goes, and that becomes.
And so is like ridiculous as like people think like the flat Earth model and other things are. All I'm saying is that the current model we have can be equally as ridiculous.
Yeah.
And just because one thing's true, like I do believe that the Earth is a sphere, yes, but that doesn't mean that everything else that goes with this stuff is 100% right either. We don't know everything.
I brought this up with you briefly last time we talked, and I'm just going to say it now because I would invite viewers to comment on this. I had a theory that sort of would explain a lot of the globe and the flat Earth stuff and many other things all in one thing. What if the Earth is a globe and it's rotating the whole thing the way that we think it is? But what if the Earth is just way larger than we're being told it is?
And I think it's possible.
Then there's other land masses on the Earth that we're not allowed to see, right? This would explain so much. It would explain why the NASA videos are faked, because they can't show a real image of the Earth, or not an image, not a complete image, because you would see too much.
Right.
It would explain things like the discrepancies in the drop in the horizon over a certain time. What is it? It's 8 inches a mile or whatever it is.
8 inches, 8 inches per mile squared.
Right.
And
but people are saying, well, look, but if I zoom in, I can see, things that I couldn't before. Well, what if the Earth was so much bigger, that calculation is just way off, and that things, yes, would still drop below the horizon, but at a way further point.
It's very possible. I mean, there's videos you can look up where people go, oh, look, the ship went over the curve of the Earth.
Sure.
And then people zoom in with very powerful cameras, and it's still right there.
So on a side note with that, I see a lot of that too. I agree with you. A lot of times though, people like with the ship, or why can I still see the Space Needle on my boats, 20 miles out to sea, but I zoom in and now I can see it.
I know what you're going to say.
But what they're not calculating is that they're not seeing the whole thing. Just because you can't see the bottom 14 inches doesn't mean that it's not curving. But anyways,
yeah, like globers go, well, it's refraction. Okay, so you're saying that it always exactly refracts perfectly to where the ship would be back right on the top of the water.
Can that happen sometimes? Yes. Sometimes you see ships that are floating in the air because of refraction, and it's like a mirage. Like, I get that, but that is like what you said, how people pick and choose when they want their science to be
just
effective.
Like flat earthers are, and I hate these things, is anytime you back a flat earther into a corner, they go, oh, it's perspective. It's all about perspective. The Glober's word of choice is, God, what was I going to say? So the flat earthers always say it's perspective, and the Globers always say relative. That's their, it's everything's relative. What do you mean? Everything's explain. Well, it's relative.
Right.
Okay. That it's just like
relative.
I can't explain it, so I'm just going to patch everything with that word.
Right. And you can't, or you shouldn't just try to win the argument by saying it's all relative. You have to explain what that means.
Yes.
It means something, and you have to respect what that means.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't, then you got no business saying it.
Yeah.
But gosh, I had a point. Oh, so the large Earth would explain that you can see things at a much further distance. It can explain why we're not allowed to take flights over certain parts of the Earth. Things like that. It would also explain weird things like unrelated things like cryptids and animals that suddenly were extinct for 10,000 years are suddenly show up in someone's backyard.
Yes.
Well, what if you have migrating animals, that somehow escape containment, right? There's that kind of thing. What if Bigfoot and the Chupacabra are actually things that live in other places?
That's right.
I know that sounds wacky, but it would explain
it. Doesn't. So another thing we can talk about in another episode and get more into is like the Admiral Byrd thing, right? So Admiral Byrd, not YouTuber Bird, Admiral Byrd, he flew over the poles and in real time was describing animals that he was seeing, like a woolly mammoth. And he's saying, I can't believe what I'm seeing. And describing these types of creatures that we think are mythical. Right. A year later, he's dead. And a year after that, they introduced the Antarctic Treaty, in which except for a
No.
few certain isolated points that we're allowed to go to. Nobody can go
Sure.
anywhere around Antarctica.
Sure.
So to touch back on the possibility of maybe, because there are things where people have clearly disproven the math behind the curve, the 8 inches per mile squared, where
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying with
Right.
that the math has to be different.
it would always, you could never even one time, if it was correct, disprove it. But it's been shown so many times that, okay, we have to accept that that's not correct. Can I show you I have one more little clip I want to show you guys.
Bring it? Yeah.
So a lot of times people go, oh, look at this pilot's, you can see the curvature of the Earth. Okay, this plane's only what, 30, what do planes cruise at? 10,000 feet?
Yeah.
So
that sounds about right.
there was a thing called the Red Bull jump where this guy went up 30,000 feet and jumped. And he's like, oh, it was amazing. I could see, the curvature of the Earth and everything. And so Globers will say this, but here's your god of your religion called science, Neil deGrasse Tyson, again. And I'm just going to show you this clip.
Okay.
So again, this is an example of things not being universal. People pick and choose when they want to use certain things. But let me show you this one. Okay. Let me do. I gotta share my screen. Okay, you see that?
Yep.
Okay, here he's
All right.
talking about this guy.
Right.
Here's your pastor, Neil deGrasse Tyson, talking about this guy that did this Red Bull space jump.
Okay.
Only that, they made sure to photograph him standing there with a really wide angle lens, which curves horizontal lines.
Right.
So in the photo, you see this curvature of Earth's surface, and he said, wow, he's in space. Look at that. No, he's not. At that height, you don't see the curvature of the Earth if you are 2 millimeters above this beach ball. You just don't. That stuff is flat.
So there you go. So let me stop sharing here real quick. Okay, am I back?
Yep.
So he's saying at 30,000 feet, you can't even see the curvature of the Earth. But other Globers will tell you, oh, you could see it from an airplane. Like, no, your own God of science, the one that you bow down to, just like somebody that goes to church bows down to their pastor. Because science, the way it's presented, does take a lot of blind faith. You're just regurgitating things you've heard from your pastor, which is the priest of science, Neil deGrasse Tyson. He slaps that beach ball like it's a jiggly ass on the beach, and he says, from 2 millimeters above the Earth, you can't. That shit is flat.
Right.
So, I mean, even at 30,000 feet, you can't show curvature of the Earth. So, like, how far away do we have to go? Okay, well, let's go to outer space. But then again, why are all these videos from outer space faked? Right. Just again, this a couple of days ago, I was telling you about this. There was like, you're scrolling through Facebook. There's these videos from like the official like ISS page. Oh, look at our beautiful Earth from space, and it's like the Earth spinning, but through the Earth, the solid Earth, you could see the twinkling stars behind it, like it was a green screen.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so if all of this is so easy, we have all this technology, why are we faking this shit?
Right.
So,
and that is something, and I don't have an answer for that, but there's obviously something that's wrong. Why
are we faking anything? So, like you said, what if the Earth is way bigger than we think? That's one theory that I could be like, okay, maybe, but is it almost likely that there's things that we don't know about? I think it's more likely that, if they're going to lie about certain things, then how can we just believe anything they say?
Right. Yeah. The curvature thing is always a fun arguments to read online, because nobody makes any good points. It gets crazy. If you think about yourself on the surface of the Earth, obviously you're the tiniest little speck of nothing, right? So it's just a matter of scale. Of course, we can't see it from where we're at. I wish I had a ball here to demonstrate, but if you're on an enormous ball and you just go straight up, you would never see the curvature unless you get far enough away that you can see the whole Earth in your field of vision. The same way that we can take a pair of binoculars or your bare eyes and look at the moon and see the whole moon, right? And the moon is a lot smaller than the Earth, but I don't know how far you'd have to go, but there would have to logically be a point where once you get up high enough, you should be able to see the shape of the Earth.
I don't think you'd have to see the whole thing. I mean, if you really zoomed in on a basketball, you're like, oh, it's flat. And then as you slowly zoom out, at some point, you're going to see, even if you saw an eighth of the basketball, oh, okay, it's curved.
Well, yeah.
You know.
But again, you know, that's the matter of perspective, of course.
Right.
But my point is, if you're on the Earth and you move up, all points in the horizon are always going to be an equal distance from you if you're on a sphere, which is why you don't see a curve. You'd have to go so high that you can now get so much of the Earth in your field of vision that you can start to see it. I think it's a lot higher than most people, including Globers and everybody, want you to believe. You'd have to go so much higher, which again feeds into my big Earth theory. I think this is a thing. We got to make big Earth a thing.
Maybe it'll be the next thing now that flat Earth is dead.
Yeah.
Right?
It would explain all the stuff we talked about. It would explain aliens, right? There's other civilizations.
Right.
It would
I mean,
explain
I don't mean to
biblical
cut you off.
models.
I don't mean to cut you off, but wouldn't it be a lot more likely that beings are coming from somewhere else on this whatever we're on that we don't know about than from 60 trillion light years away from space?
Right.
I don't want to derail you, but just saying out loud the word like 60 trillion light years, and that pertains to a lot of like the stars and stuff. Just think about how damn far that is. 60 like billion light years.
If there are aliens visiting us from other places, they can't just be traveling those distances. Maybe it's our puny human brains, you know, that can't comprehend whatever technology they're using. Because if they are traveling that distance, there's some crazy shit that they're doing. I think it's more likely that it's some sort of jump, you know, and
it has
we all know the ripple in time stuff.
Right. Where you like fold the universe on itself and then it
right, something like that they're able to go from point A to point B without any effort, you know.
Right.
And when you start talking about psychedelics and things like that, there's people that claim they can do that right now.
Yep.
And that's something that would be fun to explore.
It would.
And if Jay, this is a promise I'm going to make to you. If this podcast takes off and we start to get a lot of viewers and we start getting guest stars on, I'm going to try my hardest to get Graham Hancock onto our podcast.
That would be phenomenal.
I think it's totally doable. I think if we can get popular enough and I can I'll write him a letter every single day until he agrees to do it. And he will talk about all this stuff. He'll be talking about ancient civilizations and psychedelics and taking ayahuasca to talk about other gods and all this stuff. And he connects all the dots. Right now I'm reading his book, Fingerprints of the Gods.
I want to read that.
It's mind-blowing. When I'm done, you'll get a copy.
And then there's like Terrence McKenna with the DMT, and he talks about these machine elves and these other and that stuff's. And going back to people we want on the show, Owen Benjamin. This is an open invitation to please join us. I think you would be phenomenal.
We should start. Podcast. Yes, as soon as our podcast hits the waves, we should start contacting him right now.
I'm going to write you a personal letter to your PO box in Idaho.
And back to the flat Earth thing, Antarctica. I do have a guest lined up. He couldn't make it here today, but who has taken multiple flights over the continent of Antarctica, and he wants to come on and give us, and just to tell his story. He's not trying to promote one way or the other. I just asked him, hey, would you be willing to come on and just talk about what you saw? And he's like, yeah, of course. And he's like, as long as, I'm not going to be ridiculed for what I'm saying. And I'm like, no, that's the whole point of our podcast here, is for people to be able to come on and tell us these things. And if he's like, I went out there and there was the ice wall and we couldn't get past the river, I want to hear it. If he's like, no, there were some penguins and we flew over and I saw a few mountains and that was it, I want to hear that too. I want to hear the perspective of someone who's been there and done it.
Yep, I would
And be
too.
able to-
And
So-
to kind of go back to touch on like that, you were saying like our puny minds probably can't wrap around a lot of things, which is true. And when you read the, it's called a Kabbalion. It's the Seven Hermetic Principles, sort of the book that goes with it. They talk a lot about how you like our brains just can't even possibly comprehend. So it's kind of a waste of energy to even try. But I always use the analogy of like if you like take say an anthill in the Amazon forest, right? And they think that everything around them is the whole universe. And then one day this guy's walking through and this one ant is like, I saw this giant. He was like, because he went up to the stars and he goes back and he tells all the fellow ants and like, whatever, you're a conspiracy theorist. You know, they put him in a little ant straitjacket, but he really did though. And we could be on that anthill right now and we don't even know it. Right. We have no clue what's outside of what we can see. And
then that giant comes by with a bottle of spray water and gets the ant stuck in the water and then burns him with a magnifying glass. Does story sound familiar at all?
Yeah.
Oh, funny.
So I think that's
and why do they always think that aliens come to Earth and right away want to talk to our leaders?
Yeah.
And if I'm the guy walking down the street and seeing the anthill, do I just step on the ant or do I ask the ant to take me to the queen ant? Like, no, that's not how it works.
Right. And they always come in these ships that have like if I make a ship and I'm going in this place that's unknown, I'm just going to like, go ahead and hit the green, yellow, orange, and red flashing lights on the bottom of the craft.
Right. Yeah.
What?
Right. That reminds me of the whole drone controversy right now over New Jersey.
Which is weird to me because people know they're drones. So it's not like you're looking at alien spacecraft. They're just people flying drones. I don't know I don't understand the whole thing, so I can't really talk about it.
Well, there's all these theories that maybe it's like Iranian drones, checking out US, military bases or whatever, or China, sending in drones. Another one is that the US, our military was sending out drones to look for some lost nuclear material that disappeared or whatever. I think the majority of it is a media-driven narrative that the story is getting views, it's getting clicks online, so they keep promoting it or whatever. And it's just people with hobbyist drones, and they're out there. However, I also think that there's a good chance and most likely is that they are our own military drones, that we're advancing our own technology to keep up with China and other countries that are gone hog wild on this. And we're, testing out stuff and people saw it and got it on camera and then it's all snowballed. And now there's hobbyists out there trying to stir up the pot with their drones. I think if say it's China or Iran or whatever, trying to spy on US military bases, why would they come here with drones with flashing red and yellow lights? Like, wouldn't you have something a little more secret than that? Or if it's the military trying to test out their technology, would you just be flying it above a golf course?
Yeah.
Probably not with flashing lights at nighttime,
Right.
I think the majority of it is just that the media, the news channels and, online, people are getting clicks. And so a lot of it's just driven by that. But then, just as this thing started to die down, all of a sudden the military releases a statement saying that like drone activity over the whole like eastern seaboard is now forbidden, that hobbyists can't be sending their drones up anymore. Okay, well, wait, you just told me that it was nothing.
Yeah.
And now suddenly it's forbidden airspace and it's locked down. I can't fly my hobby drone up there to take pictures of the beach.
That's true.
So again, there is something there. What it is, I can't even venture to guess. But
yeah, yep. So
that,
one more
sort
thing
of
I wanted
ties
to
in
add,
with this whole science thing,
right? And one more thing I wanted to add about the whole like what realm are we in thing is one thing I think about a lot is the Earth. I'm sorry, the sun is 400 times larger than the moon, and it's exactly 400 times further away. And yet they line up exactly perfect, like as Owen Benjamin says, like machine cut quarters to make an eclipse. What are the odds of that? So to me, that, and I said in the beginning of this podcast that I tend to think of this thing as more of like a simulation or a realm that's based on mathematics. To have the only two perfect circles in this whole existence or realm, whatever we're in, just happen to be the exact same size, even though they're supposedly 400 times different in size and distance apart, is again, the odds are just, it's not possible.
Right. It's funny if you how worlds collide like that, how if you really get into the science like that and you're talking about there has to be a mathematical connection between all this stuff. And what you're describing when you said that, you know, I don't know if simulation is even the right word, but something based on this math, it doesn't have to be something like there's some, you know, godlike geek on his computer playing around with a simulation. It can be that just the math of the world dictates that all these things are going to line up, that you start to get these sequences and other things that happen naturally that seem crazy, but they actually line up because they're following the
that could be it too.
Sequences.
Which would go back to the whole, like, this is some sort of a mathematical driven realm.
Sure.
You know,
My point was going to be, if you start, and I said, regardless of what arm of science you're following, it all seems to lead back to the same place, including religion. That if you start to get down into the numbers and you break it down into, and this is something we'll talk about in our next episode of Wander Beyond, synchronicity and string theory and the two slit experiment, where reality can be dictated by intention and thoughts and all this, and all of that. When you break down the number sequences and all of that, and intent, and even a person's not a soul, what's the word I'm looking for, where you're aware of yourself, self-awareness, but whatever, that
ego.
If you slowly, you know, if you go farther down, all of a sudden you, the scientist and the theologist, are eventually talking about the exact same thing.
It's true.
When you break it all down and everything down into its smallest parts, it's all the same.
We need to get into this episode about vortex math.
Yeah.
And I know just the word math sounds boring, but really when you see this stuff,
you show me a lot of really interesting math stuff. We'll get into that, and your gematria and everything else. You showed us some stuff that you put together that blew our minds away over here, my wife and I. So
yeah,
we'll talk about that. Well, this has been fun.
It has.
And there's I have like 30 computer tabs open and a whole notebook full of stuff I did. So I have guests that I still want to bring on to continue to talk about this. So there's going to be multiple episodes coming up in the pretty near future where we kind of loop back to this and connect this to other theories and other ideas.
Right.
It's just
I didn't
cool.
even get to touch on now I'm not a Bible guy. Anybody that knows me knows I've questioned the Bible and everything, but things in the Bible, like there's specific verses that talk about how the earth was created and how it's not spinning, or it's not revolving at all. And I think that's another part of why people started to put together this flat earth theory.
Sure.
I know we're trying to wrap it up. Can I just spit a couple of those out?
Yeah. I have a point I want to make too. So
okay. Let me just.
We got all the time in the world.
Okay. One of the things is I think that flat earthers were always very unfairly presented. I think there was like a lot of straw man arguments, and I know that they get frustrated by that because I don't think they're ever given like a fair shake.
Sure.
Okay, what was I doing now? Let me pull this up. So let me see if I can share this. Can you see this screen?
I can now. Hold on. Okay, you're up. You're live.
Okay. So like Genesis 6 and 7, and God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. So what is a firmament? It's basically a dome, and it talks about like waters below the firmament and waters above it. So Genesis 7, and God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. And so, and I know that some people say it's out of focus, but some people zoom in on like stars and things, and it certainly does look like light coming through water.
It does, but that's
I know.
There's so
I'm
much
just saying,
distortion. There's
I
lens
understand.
distortion, atmospheric distortion. You can't use a small stuff that you can get here at Walmart and zoom up and get a clear picture of a star. You just can't do that.
Right. No, I agree with that. So I'm just saying, like, this is.
But I do understand how that is used to forward the narrative. I get it.
Right. And then you got Job 37:18. Hast thou with him spread out the sky, which is strong and as a molten looking glass. So in other words, it's referring to the firmament as like a looking glass. And then verses about the earth not moving. And there's so many of these. I could sit here all day but Chronicles 16:30. Fear before him all the earth, the world also shall be stable, that it not be moved.
Right.
Psalms 93:1. The Lord reigneth, he is clothed with majesty. The Lord is clothed with strength, whereas he hath girded himself. The world also is established, that it cannot be moved. Psalm 96:10. Say among the heathen that the Lord reigneth. The world also shall be established, that it shall not be moved.
Right. And that's religious texts, and I understand that that's where a lot of that came from. And if you question that, you're questioning people's faith, and of course they take great offense to that. Right. Whatever. I don't want to make this into.
But to me, that's no different than making science your religion, because it all requires blind faith.
I agree with you.
It all requires looking at something that somebody else said and saying, okay, that's going to be the model that I agree with.
Yes.
And no matter what you say, you can't change my mind. And to me, that's crazy.
In an upcoming episode, we're going to have a guest on who's a friend of mine, and we're going to talk about a lot of this stuff. And he has some really, really fascinating takes. I don't want to call him a religious or a Bible scholar, but he's very well versed, and he has a lot of insight on Bible verses. He's really very, very knowledgeable about this. And he says that there is a lot, that what you just read is a lot of Book of Genesis stuff, and that there's a lot of stuff in the modern parts of the Bible that actually support a globe earth too, and that you can't look at the two different texts as one text. You have to look at them separately.
That's true.
He has a lot of really fascinating things to say, not just about this subject, but about other things that ties the Bible into modern science. And again, it goes back to all of a sudden you're talking about the same thing. And he says that the more that science learns about our universe, the more that it's proving that what's in the Bible is true. So it's going to be a really fascinating episode to have a conversation. And I won't give him his name right now, because I want to make sure that he's all cool with this. But I think it'll be a really fun conversation. It'll be neat to be able to ask him questions and see what he has to say about it, because he knows his shit. So
good. That'll be
a lot of fun. If we could get him on with the same as my Antarctica guy I've been talking to, that would be an episode for the ages. That would be great. So I'll see if I can line that up, and we'll do that in a week or two.
Excellent.
All right. Well, let's wrap up this number 2 episode here. We've been going on for over an hour. I really want to thank you wanderers out there who are just looking for a bit of truth, and if not some entertainment, by tuning into our podcast. The next one that we're planning, I won't get much into it now, but it's going to be really fascinating, and you have to tune in. It's going to delve a lot into synchronicity and
it's going to be great.
Quantum physics and string theory and the Randonautica app. I know a lot of you out there who listening know what that is.
Yes.
And this episode 3 is going to be the reason for everything you're seeing here. It was.
So we're going to show them our trip, right?
Okay. Should I talk a little bit about it?
Just briefly.
Okay. Jason and I are we're fans of the Randonautica app, and I went out to visit him. And we went on a what do they call it? Not a Randonautica. They call it anyways, we went on an adventure. We'll talk about it more, but we picked a spot. We went there, and I wasn't even planning on it, but I just started documenting it, like in this, cool kind of Blair Witch style, And it turned out to be the craziest, most fun, most mind-altering adventure that we've ever been on.
I remember
And
sitting in that cafe afterwards, and we were both just like in
just
shock.
in disbelief. Yes. And then, so we're going to talk about all that. I'm going to show all of the video from beginning to end, all the pictures we took. We're going to talk about what it felt like to be there and what we gathered from the experience. We want to do all that. And we're actually planning, we'll talk about this more, but we're planning on going back to that same location with camera crews to do a live shoot online. We want to live cast our experience exploring more some of the places that we found. And that's going to be outstanding. So stay tuned. There's some really, really fun stuff coming up. All right. So let's wrap this up. Jay, thanks a lot for hanging out. And
thank you. I know we pissed some people off with this episode. There's people gnashing their teeth and pounding their keyboards. Give us your feedback and your input. Maybe we'll have some of you guys on here.
Please. If you hate us, let us know. Seriously. Like, we welcome all of it. And again, if you have strong feelings and you have a lot of stuff to talk about, let us know, and maybe we'll get you on the show and we can have a conversation and we'll bounce ideas off each other. And anybody who wants to be on our show, you will not face any ridicule from us. We will always accept what you're saying, or not accept, we will always listen to what you're saying with an open mind. And
everything's on the table.
We welcome it and invite it. Any subject, let's do it. All right, so let's finish this episode 2 of Wander Beyond. One more time, thank you, everybody. Leave comments, and we'll talk to you next time. Keep wandering.